Have you ever heard yourself say, I did everything for them, and they still left me? Or maybe you felt, I gave all I had, but they never gave it back. It felt like love, but was it really? No one teaches us the difference between love and emotional debt. They feel the same at first. They both come with butterflies, sacrifices, sleepless nights. But one is real, and the other is a slow, silent erosion of the self. In a world where we're taught to earn love, to prove we're worthy, to keep trying even when it hurts, so many of us confuse love with something else entirely. This is not your fault. You were programmed for it, by movies that glorify suffering in the name of romance, by childhoods where attention came only after pleasing, by a culture that tells you, if they don't love you yet, try harder. But what if I told you that what you feel isn't love, that the constant giving, the waiting, the hoping, the sacrificing isn't devotion, it's debt, emotional debt, a bond built on imbalance, on invisible transactions, on the silent belief that, if I just give a little more, maybe they'll finally love me back. The pain you carry, the exhaustion, the confusion, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been trying to pay off a love that was never mutual to begin with. You gave presence, they gave absence. You gave words, they gave silence. You gave your whole heart, they gave excuses. And still, you stayed, because part of you believed, if I stop giving, they'll leave. But here's the truth. They were never really there. This is the anatomy of emotional debt. One person giving endlessly, the other just receiving. One person investing, the other withdrawing. And what makes it more dangerous is that the debtor doesn't even know they're in debt, because they don't keep score. They only keep hope. They hope that one day it'll all be worth it. That one day they'll hear, I see you, I choose you, I love you. But that day never comes. And still, they stay. Not because they're in love, but because they're emotionally bankrupt, and they don't know how to stop giving, even to someone who never asked. They told you love means sacrifice. They told you it takes effort, patience, forgiveness. So you gave, and gave, and gave, waiting for the reward that never came. You weren't desperate, you were trained. From the moment we learn to speak, we're taught to be likable, agreeable, good. We're told to earn smiles, praise, affection, to say thank you even when it hurts, to not make a scene when we're ignored, to try harder if someone pulls away. That is the beginning of emotional capitalism, a belief system where love must be earned, where relationships are investments, and the one who gives the most wins. Except, no one wins in emotional debt. This mindset becomes dangerous because suddenly every act of love becomes a transaction. I listened to you cry. Will you stay now? I forgave your silence. Will you love me now? I gave up my needs. Do I matter yet? But love, real love, doesn't come from merit. It comes from connection. And connection can't be forced, can't be traded, can't be begged for. But the emotionally indebted person believes otherwise. They believe if they endure enough, the other person will see their worth. And this is the cruelest lie of all. Because the more you give, the harder it becomes to stop. Not because you're obsessed, but because you're afraid to admit it was never love at all. What if you've spent years paying for a relationship that was never built on mutual care? What if every sacrifice wasn't proof of your love, but a symptom of your conditioning? It's not your fault. You were groomed for this, by broken examples, by cultural myths, by family stories that said love must be earned, that it should hurt before it heals, that it's normal to feel small, as long as you're loved. But there's nothing normal about being drained, about giving without return, about needing to be less, so someone else can stay. This isn't love, it's survival. And the longer you stay, the deeper the debt grows. Not just emotional, but spiritual. A debt that steals your joy, your self-worth, your identity. Because love shouldn't make you disappear. Love shouldn't make you beg. Love shouldn't make you question if you matter. Yet here you are, waiting for someone to see you, while slowly unseeing yourself. There's a moment when the giving no longer feels like a choice, when you stop noticing how much you've given, because giving has become who you are. You don't ask if it's fair, you just assume it's necessary. You don't expect return, you just hope for less pain. This is how emotional debt becomes identity. It starts with love, but ends in self-erasure. You learn to read the other person's needs before they speak. You soften your words before they judge. You shrink your desires before they can disappoint. At some point, you stop being yourself and start being what they need, or what you think they might stay for. You tell yourself it's strength, that you're patient, that you're understanding, that love means adapting. But deep down, you know the real you has gone quiet. You know your boundaries have blurred into nothing. You know the silence inside you isn't peace, it's absence. But you keep going, because stopping now would mean facing it all, admitting how long you've been in deficit, how much of you was spent on someone who never asked for your wholeness, because they only ever wanted a version of you that didn't ask for anything back. And here's the cruel truth. When giving becomes your identity, receiving feels like guilt. When someone offers you love, you flinch, you question it, you sabotage it, because somewhere along the line you learned love is earned, not given. So when someone gives freely, you don't trust it. When someone stays without conditions, you pull away. This is the cycle of emotional debt. First, you give to be loved. Then you fear love that doesn't ask you to give. You live between the ache of not being enough and the fear of being too much. That's how you lose yourself. Not in one moment, but in hundreds of silent trades. A piece of joy here, a boundary there. Until one day, you wake up a stranger in your own skin. You call it love. But love never asked you to disappear. You think you chose them, but really, you abandoned yourself, not for romance, but for survival. If this feels like your story, you're not the only one. Subscribe to Depthora, not for answers, but for better questions. There comes a moment, quiet, unpredictable, when something inside you whispers, this isn't love anymore. It doesn't always arrive in a scream. Sometimes it's a long look in the mirror. Sometimes it's a single unanswered message, or a birthday forgotten. Again, sometimes It's just the silence after they leave the room, and you don't miss them. That's the beginning of the awakening. It's not clarity, it's discomfort. It doesn't bring peace. It brings a question. How long have I been gone? You start noticing the things you used to love now feel like chores. You realize you've stopped laughing. You don't remember the last time you felt safe, just being you. You see the imbalance, how you do all the reaching, all the explaining, all the forgiving, and something breaks. Not your heart, your pattern. For the first time, you don't try to fix it. You don't apologize for needing more. You don't shrink to fit the moment. You just feel it. The anger, the grief, the betrayal, not from them, but from the version of you who kept saying, "This is enough." This is the crack in the cycle. The moment you stop calling it love and start calling it what it is. Debt. You look back and see all the places you bent too far, all the I'm fines that weren't, all the nights you convinced yourself that crumbs were a feast. And maybe for the first time, you don't blame them. You don't hate them. You just see it. You see yourself in the act of disappearing, and you whisper, "No more." Not louder, but clearer, because the moment you name it is the moment it loses power. You can't untangle a cycle you keep romanticizing. You can't heal from a wound you keep calling love. The awakening doesn't mean it stops hurting, but it does mean you've stopped lying. You finally realize you were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. Silence has a cost, and it's never free. For every "it's fine" you whisper when it's not, for every need you swallow, for every moment you choose peace over truth, you pay. Not in money, but in pieces of yourself. This is what emotional debt truly steals. Not just your happiness, your identity. You become a version of yourself you no longer recognize, smiling when you're tired, agreeing when you're hurting, loving when there's nothing left to love. But love, when one-sided, doesn't just drain you, it rewrites you. You forget what real love feels like. You lose your sense of what's normal. You start thinking that care must always come with cost, that affection is earned through pain, that love means endurance, not connection. This is how we become addicted to staying, not because it feels good, but because we've forgotten what feeling good even means. You start to fear the silence more than the shouting. You fear loneliness more than being invisible, because somewhere along the line you made a deal. If I stay, if I don't ask for more, maybe this will turn into love. But it won't, and you know that now, because love isn't quiet like this. It doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't live in your chest like a weight. Love, real love, is nourishing, stable, soft, even in storms. It's not always perfect, but it never asks you to abandon yourself to keep it. When you stay in emotional debt too long, your silence becomes a habit. You stop noticing your needs, you stop voicing your truth, and worst of all, you stop believing you deserve more. But here's what you must remember. Your silence doesn't protect love. It protects fear, fear of change, fear of loss, fear of starting again. But the real danger is staying, because every day you do, you go a little more numb, a little more small, a little more lost. You don't need to be loud to reclaim yourself. You just need to stop apologizing for existing. Your story doesn't have to end with depletion. You can stop the payments. You can walk away, not from love, but from the lie that this was ever love. You left. Maybe not physically. Maybe you're still in the same room, still sending the same texts, still smiling when it hurts. But something inside you left, quietly, softly, like a breath finally released after being held for too long. You no longer believe you have to earn love. You no longer confuse giving everything with being loved in return. You no longer call pain a sign of depth. This is recovery, not dramatic, not loud, but real. You start by noticing what drains you, what makes you doubt your worth, what asks you to become less in order to be accepted more. And then you say no to people, to patterns, to beliefs you were handed but never questioned. You begin to remember what you felt like before love became a negotiation, before you learned to trade silence for closeness, before you believed that suffering was loyalty. And in that remembering, you heal, not all at once, but slowly, like a home rebuilt from ashes, brick by brick, voice by voice, boundary by boundary. You begin to receive, not just attention, but care, not just presence, but presence without condition. And maybe it feels unfamiliar, maybe it even scares you. Because when all you've known is emotional debt, real love feels suspicious. But you stay with it. You breathe through the discomfort, and you remind yourself, love doesn't ask for proof. It asks for presence. It doesn't demand you shrink. It makes space for your full form. It doesn't empty you. It pours into you. As you pour back, not to earn, but to connect. So if you've spent your life paying for love, you are not broken. You were taught a faulty system, one you can now unlearn. And as you do, you might just find that the love you were waiting for was never theirs to give. It was yours all along.